Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar. Hopefully someday relatively soon, we will be able to do this kind of meeting in person. But for now, thanks so much for joining the video conference. My name is Stephanie Donaldson, and I'm the Director of Consumer and Industry Relations for the Home Construction Regulatory Authority, the HCRA for short. On behalf of the HCRA, I want to welcome you to this webinar. The HCRA is moving toward launch in less than a month, really less than a month, on February 1st. We're well prepared and have everything in place to begin operations on that date. The HCRA's goal is regulatory excellence. That includes effective engagement, and we appreciate you taking the time to learn more about what the HCRA will do and how it will benefit Ontario's home building sector, both for consumers and industry. Many of you already know at least a bit about our organization, but let me start with a quick summary of our role. Our interim CEO, Tim Hadwen, will provide more detail in a few minutes. So in brief, as of February 1st, the HCRA will be responsible for regulating and licensing the people and companies who build and sell new homes in Ontario. The HCRA will enforce high professional standards for competence and conduct in the home building industry, giving new home buyers confidence in one of the biggest purchases of their lives. The HCRA will also ensure consistency across the sector, deterring unethical and illegal builders and ensuring a fair marketplace. Our operational guidelines, including around licensing fees and a code of conduct, have been posted to our interim website at hcraontario.ca. We encourage you to visit the interim website for more detail about how the HCRA will work and what it will mean to all stakeholders in the home building sector. In addition to licensing, the HCRA will provide educational information for consumers on their home buying journey. We'll also manage the Ontario Builder Directory, the OBD, which provides background information about each of Ontario's more than 5,000 builders and vendors. The OBD is being updated and redesigned by the HCRA, and as part of this webinar, we'll give you a demonstration of the new OBD, showing you what it looks like and how it works. When the HCRA launches in February, the OBD will be the official source of current information on each builder and vendor's license status, as well as specifics such as the number of homes they've built and their warranty history. It will also list illegal builders and provide details about charges and convictions to better inform and protect consumers. Previously, builders and vendors were regulated through Tarion, managers of Ontario's new home warranty program. The HCRA, separately and independently from Tarion, is implementing a new modern regulatory framework with new licensing processes. Tarion will continue to deliver Ontario's new home warranty protection program, backstopping the statutory warranty coverage provided to purchasers of new homes. So that's the quick synopsis of who we are. A key objective of this webinar tonight is to share the HCRA's vision, how the home building sector is changing, and how this will benefit home buyers and builders. So if you have any questions at all or comments during the webinar, please write them in the Zoom Q&A box, and we'll get to as many as we can. So I've given a bit of background on the HCRA now, and to provide additional context, historical, legislative, aspirational, I'd like to please welcome HCRA's interim CEO, Tim Hadwen, to take you through a background presentation. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, and good evening, everyone. We do appreciate you taking the time to learn more about the HCRA and what it will mean for the home building sector and new home buyers. I'd like to start by giving you some more background about the HCRA. Stephanie gave you an overview, and I want to add some context so you know why the HCRA is being created and what will change when we launch in a week and a half. To move forward with the government's consumer protection agenda, the government enacted the New Home Construction Licensing Act, which requires the establishment of the Home Construction Regulatory Authority. By regulation under that act, the HCRA is to begin operations on February 1st, taking over responsibility for licensing and regulating the people and companies who build and sell new homes in Ontario. The HCRA is to be focused on consumer protection. Central to that will be our licensing requirements and compliance activities. We will also be a resource for new home buyers, providing educational information on their home buying journey and a streamlined complaint system for when real concerns arise with the builder. As Stephanie noted, we will also manage the Ontario Builder Directory, which is the official source of public information about Ontario's builders and vendors. Our mandate is high professional standards for builders and vendors, standards for their conduct, for their technical competency, and their financial responsibility. We'll be taking a modernized approach based on the best practices for regulatory authorities that engage in licensing oversight, ensuring compliance, and enforcing standards. This is intended to be a stronger regulatory framework, doing more to ensure consistency across the sector, deter unethical and illegal builders, and maintain a fair marketplace. Ultimately, the HCRA's work should improve customers' confidence in one of the biggest, if not the biggest, purchase of their life. Our interim mission. I say interim because our approach will for sure evolve as we move forward post-launch. Our interim mission is to improve Ontario's home building sector and its regulatory oversight. Specifically, our mission includes doing a good job regulating the industry, which will build trust with home buyers and home builders, continuously enhancing protection of and confidence in home buyers. We intend to learn from our Doors Open experience and to put in place improved and more effective approaches. Fairness and efficiency. Fairness by listening, gathering all the facts, and making impartial decisions guided by legislation and policy. Efficiency, including ensuring a smooth transition, processes and protocols that make sense and are easy to access, and by providing good value for money, by being cost-effective and self-sustaining through reasonable fees. Teamwork and collaboration, making sure we're accountable, engaging, and making sure everyone understands what we're doing and why. These are the functions that the HCRA will fulfill. In brief, licensing, ensuring there is a complete licensing and renewal process in place and ready to process all applications in a timely way. Application requirements, making sure the application requirements are clear and well understood. Applicant competency criteria, setting the competency requirements for new applicants. For launch, they will remain unchanged from the current competencies. Maintaining the Ontario Builder Directory, including implementation of the Auditor General's recommended improvements. Compliance and enforcement tools, using the tools we've been given to take any necessary action to ensure that builders and vendors continue to meet standards and that illegal builders are deterred. Consumer awareness, keeping new home buyers well informed of how to protect themselves when buying a home and what they should reasonably expect from their builder. Complaints, giving consumers a way to bring forward a complaint when they have real concern about their builder's conduct. Information sharing, working with Tarion and other stakeholders to make sure our decisions are based on accurate, up-to-date data, including about the builder's warranty history when it is relevant to licensing decisions. And good conduct expectations, setting out the expectations for the way builders and vendors should behave in their interactions with consumers. The government has proposed a code of ethics, which will provide an even clearer standard against which complaints can be judged. This is a development that both consumers and the Ontario Home Builders Association support. To provide historical context, the Tarion Warranty Corporation has been responsible for both licensing and warranties. And as of Feb 1, the HCRA will assume the licensing role. In other words, we'll have one job where Tarion has had two. The HCRA will be fully independent of Tarion and use its own new regulatory framework. Tarion will still be responsible for warranties, including enrolling homes in the warranty program, and will be the organization for home buyers to contact if they have issues about the construction of their home and any defects. What is changing is that home buyers with a potential concern with the conduct of their builder can now turn to us. In essence, the HCRA will ensure high standards for the builder, and Tarion will backstop responsibility for the building. This timeline slide shows you what has been done to date and what is coming over the next month. As you'll see, in December, we posted notice of fees, guidelines, and in January, we are engaging in introductory webinars. All of our guidelines for licensing and complaints are already on our website. Please go and have a look if you haven't already. Tonight's public webinar is one of 4, and all are part of our commitment to be open and transparent, to both inform stakeholders about what we're doing and to welcome their feedback. We do not want any surprises for you or for us when our doors open. That's why we're sharing our plans to make sure everyone knows what to expect when we formally launch operations. And behind the scenes, we're testing and retesting our new functions so they're fully ready. Home builders and vendors, and of course, people waiting for their new home, should not experience any disruption from the establishment of the HCRA. The HCRA recognizes that most builders perform well, and we will not be holding back those who demonstrate the expected levels of conduct and competency. At the same time, the new framework, as intended, does allow for decisive action when needed to protect consumers. We also recognize that sometimes consumers and builders will not immediately know where to turn. The HCRA and Tarion are committed to a no wrong door approach, seamlessly directing consumers and home builders to the right place to deal with their specific issues. What's new for builders and vendors? As part of ensuring a smooth transition, it's important to be clear that there will be some changes when the HCRA launches Feb 1. Let me provide an overview, starting with what will be new for builders and vendors. At the core of the HCRA's intended dynamic approach is a risk management framework. By that, I mean that the HCRA will be ready to continuously evaluate and respond to risks. Where should we be concentrating our efforts? Where should we be taking effective action? Where is it not necessary for us to impose restrictions, i.e., where can we lighten regulatory burden? And when we talk about risk, we mean risk to consumers. In short, the question will be, where can we best target our resources to protect new home buyers? All of our decisions will be made in the public interest in the areas of conduct, competency, and financial responsibility. One area of change will be new requirements for applicants. These are quite common in other sectors, and we're bringing them to the new home construction sector. For new licensing applicants, we'll require a criminal record and judicial matters check as part of our assessment to ensure that the applicant can reasonably be expected to obey the law and act with honesty and integrity. For both new and renewing applicants, we have added asking applicants to declare interested persons, individuals beyond principals, officers, and directors who have a substantial influence over a company's decisions. It's important for them to be brought to our attention so their presence can be assessed as part of the licensing review. Fee structure. Effective consumer protection requires resources. Our costs of operation need to be covered by licensing fees. To ensure we have the necessary resources to do our job, licensing fees are changing. Tarion will no longer be registering builders as licensees, and so it will no longer charge those registration fees. Instead, the HCRA will be charging new and annual renewal licensing fees. The licensing fees for new applicants will see modest increases. Renewal fees will stay the same, along with the maintenance of the fast-track process for low-risk builders. In addition to those fees, we will also be charging a per-home regulatory oversight fee. This fee is collected on a per-unit basis to reflect the scope of each builder and vendor's operations. To partially offset the regulatory oversight fee, Tarion is reducing its per-home enrollment fee. Overall, the HCRA has endeavored to keep costs to builders and vendors from rising significantly. These modest increases will be offset by the benefits of a more active and modern regulator improving the sector, which means creating a more level playing field for builders and vendors, and is intended to create more confidence for consumers. Most builders who interact with the HCRA have licenses that they will be renewing. If you were registered with Tarion, your registration transitions automatically to a license with the HCRA on February 1. To support a smooth transition to the new regulator, license expiry dates have been extended. Registrants with an expiry date of November 1, 2020 through to March 31st, 2021 have an extension of up to 150 days to apply for a renewal. Renewal due dates, after which there is a late fee on top of the licensing fee, are 30 days prior to the expiry date. So if your license was due to expire on November 1, the new expiry date is March 31st, and the renewal date is March 1st. That gives each builder at least a month after the HCRA launches to get familiar with the new portal and form and the new requirements before filing a renewal application. After this one-time extension, licenses will revert to their previous expiry dates for the next renewal by the HCRA. So for example, if your expiry date was November 1, 2020, it was extended one time, then the next license expiry date will be November 1, 2021. The HCRA is introducing 2 new policy instruments that will serve as communication tools to the industry. This is most appropriately compared to Tarian's former builder bulletins. The HCRA will have directories and advisories, and Tarian will have registrar bulletins. HCRA directives and advisories will be posted on the HCRA website. Once posted, each directive or advisory will be communicated through the appropriate channels so that builders and vendors are well informed of any changes that may impact their business. Directives are specific requirements for how licensees are to operate. These are more obligatory in nature. We plan on introducing at launch 3 directives: the condo information sheet, which is to be provided to all new condo buyers, the addendum to the agreement of purchase and sale, and square footage calculation requirements. You'll be able to visit our website on February 1 to see these directives. Advisories provide general expectations for licensees that do not set specific transactional requirements. On Feb 1, you'll be able to review our advisories on the common definitions of home, builder, vendor, and owner to be used by both the HCRA and Tarian, as well as our guide to good conduct, an advisory on builders maintaining the security of confidential information, and the Code of Conduct and Professionalism for HCRA compliance and enforcement staff. Now let's talk about what is changing from a consumer perspective. For consumers, our overarching objective is to ensure greater confidence in this major purchase, knowing that you are buying a properly built new home from a licensed builder. We want to ensure that consumers have as much information as possible about the steps in the home buying journey. This will support informed decisions. This includes guidelines on working with a builder. What should be the consumer's expectations of their builder, and what are reasonable expectations for the builder to have of the consumer? All of this material is being presented in a way that will be easily navigated and understood, we hope, recognizing that most new home buyers will never have done this before. A major source of information is the Ontario Builder Directory. We're going to show you a demonstration of the redesigned OBD in a few minutes. It's a searchable database with information about all of Ontario's licensed home builders and vendors. Some of the information that the directory provides includes confirmation that a builder is licensed, whether they have any record of convictions, the number of homes they've built, and their warranty history. The warranty history will come from Tarian, and we will arrange to post it on the OBD. Prospective home buyers are encouraged to search the OBD to ensure the builder they are considering working with is licensed to build homes in Ontario. Our position is, if the builder is not licensed, do not buy from them. Also new is a streamlined complaints process. The HCRA's complaints process provides a way to bring concerns about licensed builders to our attention. If someone comes to us with a construction or warranty issue, we will arrange with them to bring the matter to Tarian. Our complaints process provides an impartial and flexible assessment of concerns from both consumers and builders that is fair to all sides. We recognize that some complaints are urgent, and we will deal with them accordingly, including perhaps the most urgent of all, complaints that a builder is building illegally. That'll be a priority for us to address. The HCRA will evaluate each complaint individually and, based on a fair assessment of the specific circumstances in the law, will determine the right course of action to resolve the complaint. The complaints process will be streamlined with online, easy-to-use forms, and will be all ears to understand and address the complaint. It is the HCRA's intention to deal with all complaints in a timely and thorough manner. In closing, let me reiterate that the HCRA is committed to ongoing engagement with all stakeholders, new home builders and vendors, new home purchasers, government, real estate professionals, municipalities, inspectors, and everyone else with an interest in the new home marketplace. It's important for us to be transparent and communicative. We want to make sure that we continue to address the right priorities, identify and address the real risks, be accountable, and above all, build trust, both in the HCRA and in the home building sector we have responsibility for oversight of. We encourage you to stay in touch with us, to visit our website, and to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Thank you, and I'll turn it back to Stephanie.
Thanks, Tim. So there's the background on the HCRA and what it is aiming to accomplish. And as Tim noted, the Ontario Builder Directory is an important tool, the official source of information about Ontario's new home builders and vendors. And we'd love to take a few minutes now to show you how it works. So we'll just bring it up on screen. Here we go. So the new and improved OBD is still under construction as we continue our preparation for our launch on February 1st. And for part of tonight's demonstration, we just want to let you know that we're using dummy data, which is made up companies and made up information. So this will give you a sense of what will be available when the new OBD launches and how different types of builder records will appear. We'll also show you a sample of the real thing using live data. So the OBD opens to this search page that you see here. And as Tim noted, you can use this to find information about a specific builder or vendor, or to check a new home's warranty status. For purposes of this demonstration, we will focus on builder and vendor information. The first thing we want to show you is what happens if you type in the name of a builder who is not licensed, i.e. they're not legally allowed to build or sell new homes in Ontario. Please note that this only displays builders who have been charged or convicted with illegal building. In other words, they have an illegal building record. The HCRA endeavors to ensure that new home builders and vendors are licensed, but we also rely on the information and feedback provided by the public to identify and address these violations. We strongly encourage you to contact the HCRA if you believe a builder or vendor is operating illegally. Remember, for this part of the demo, we're using fictional companies. So if a builder or vendor is not licensed, you'll see this red warning come up. If you're thinking about doing business with this builder, you should end your relationship right then and there. I want to emphasize this is quite rare. The vast majority of new home builders and vendors in Ontario are not only licensed, but have good records of technical competency and ethical conduct. But it's vitally important to know if a builder or vendor is working illegally. Similarly rare are builders who have a history of unethical behavior. Again, this applies to very few in Ontario, but again, it's important information to know. So, excuse me, if a builder has encountered numerous problems, such as convictions or chargeable conciliations, which are essentially a failure to comply with warranty orders, an orange warning will come up. This doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do business with this builder, and it's always a good idea to investigate further, but this lets you know that the builder or vendor has some work to do to meet expectations of good conduct. By the way, we recognize that not everyone will be familiar with all of the terms in the OBD. Most new homebuyers won't have been through this before, so they might not even have heard of Tarion. So when you scroll over certain words, such as chargeable conciliation, a brief definition will pop up. The website also includes a glossary of terms. So now let us show you what you will find most of the time, a builder with a good record. So you can see the green indicators showing no outstanding issues over there. And now let's show you a search using actual data. We're going to type in the name of a builder you've likely all heard of, Tridel. In addition to confirming that the builder or vendor is licensed and has a good performance record, you can also see other background information. At a glance, which provides an overview of the total number of homes built, licensing infractions, and warranty information. Contact information, including office addresses, information about company ownership, and other details that will help inform decisions about new home purchases. Please note that the OBD does not include any ratings or rankings, like Yelp or HomeStars, for example. As a regulator, it's important for the HCRA to provide objective, quantifiable, accurate information. And if a consumer is looking for more subjective information, like ratings or satisfaction levels, they can check with other home buyers or consumer advocates and search the internet. The OBD is one tool to help consumers make informed decisions about their purchase. One last note about the OBD. Licensed builders and vendors will be legally responsible for providing updated information to the HCRA when there are relevant changes to their operations, such as a change in address or ownership. And the HCRA will also update each builder and vendor status based on data from Tarion and the HCRA's own investigations. So I hope you found that demonstration useful. We strongly believe new home buyers, as well as builders and vendors, will see the Ontario Builder Directory as a useful guide, serving as the official source of information about the 5,000 plus builders and vendors in the province. And without further ado, now we'd like to open up the discussion to your questions and comments. Again, if you have questions or comments, please use the Q&A box on Zoom. And just before we get to the questions, I want to let you know that the HCRA is planning one more information webinar this January, next Thursday at noon. If you want to let others know if you think they would find it helpful, that would be appreciated. And now let's turn to your questions. And thank you in advance, Tim, for being on deck to respond to all of the good questions from our participants tonight. So let's start with this one. It's about how the HCRA talks a lot about ensuring confidence in new home buying, and how does the HCRA do this?
We have a consumer protection mandate, and when consumers understand that it's a well-regulated industry with appropriate regulatory oversight, then that should instill additional confidence in them. And to review what we are going to do in that respect, the first is to have clear standards for licensing of builders, for their conduct, for their competence, for their financial responsibility, and assessing builders' readiness in those areas to be good builders. And we have some additional tools and processes that we put in place for that purpose, including the criminal background check that we mentioned, and also having a better understanding of the nature of the company's operations by asking for a declaration of interested persons. It's also important that if there are any concerns, that they come forward and get addressed through a complaints process, because knowing that there's an effective complaints process in place where if concerns are raised, they'll be fairly and fully dealt with, increases confidence in the marketplace. And we fully intend to do that. We have a simple and straightforward complaints process created, and we will be working with complainants to make sure that they have the opportunity to fully put their complaint forward. We'll also provide the builder with the right opportunity to respond. And if there are genuine concerns that need to be addressed, we have the capacity to do so. The legislation includes tools that we can use for this purpose, including requiring conditions, suspensions, compliance orders, issuing warnings, requiring educational courses, and then provided that a code of ethics comes into effect, adjudicating complaints against the code of ethics through a discipline and appeals committee, putting us in the position to issue decisions about whether or not the code of ethics has been upheld, and over time to utilize administrative monetary penalties and fines. And all of that are the mechanisms by way of which we can ensure that consumer interests are protected at the front end and then addressed if things go wrong. The other thing that we do think is important for consumer protection is education of consumers, putting them in the position to understand better the nature of the transaction they're involved in, what reasonable expectations are of a builder, who builders are, and better understanding of how they should work with them and when they're being treated in a way that isn't appropriate. The vast majority of builders are performing well, but we need to be ready to deal with concerns that arise effectively. And our mandate of consumer protection and upholding consumer protection through licensing puts us in a position to concentrate on exactly that job.
Thanks, Tim. So speaking of education, one of our attendees said we've talked a lot about consumer education and perhaps we haven't talked enough about builder education. So can you tell us a little bit about builder education and HCRA's role in that?
One of the things that we can do for the education of builders is be clear about the good conduct expectations, and we certainly intend to do so. For example, in our good conduct expectations that are going to be on our website February 1 and are already on our interim website, we make it clear that the expectations for builders include fairness, honesty, and integrity, compliance with the law, having the necessary technical competencies, honoring their warranty obligations, and not engaging in fraud or misrepresentation or discrimination or harassment. So we're being ever clearer about what the standards of expectation for builders are, and we think that that's helpful, and that the code of ethics would be a good direction to move to further enhance that. We also think it's helpful for builders to understand what consumers are being told about reasonable expectations of builders and what consumers are being told about reasonable expectations that builders would have of consumers, so that both parties have a clearer sense of what an appropriate approach to the relationship is. We do also think that a further conversation about both consumer education and builder education is something that we should be engaging in post doors open. So we're going to be interested in hearing about how we can further enhance both consumer education and builder education, so that there is more understanding of both conduct issues, but also of competency issues. Education of both consumers and builders is a part of our mandate. And frankly, it's a part of our mandate in which we are aware of the fact that post doors open, more can be done. We'll want to consult on what that more is to make sure that we're providing information that's really useful, to put it another way, that addresses risks, addresses concerns that people see. That's not working out quite right in that area. People need to know more about this. That's the kind of feedback we'd like to get. And we do think there's room to grow with respect to consumer and home buyer education. And we'd be really interested in that dialogue.
Thanks, Tim. So we have a couple of questions about oversight of the HCRA. One about the jurisdiction and the role of the Auditor General of Ontario. Another about what generally government oversight means to HCRA. So can you talk a little bit about the framework that the HCRA exists within?
On the Auditor General's side, we are within the Auditor General's jurisdiction. And as people may know, the Auditor General engaged in an audit of Tarion, the special audit of Tarion, which produced a range of recommendations which Tarion and the government are committed to carrying through on to implementing. And some of those recommendations apply, of course, to the licensing function that Tarion has had. And we will, as the HCRA, continue the work to implement the Auditor General's recommendations. The Auditor General has also recently audited a number of other regulatory authorities, the TSSA, and then more recently, the Condominium Management Regulatory Authority of Ontario and others, producing a range of recommendations that we think are highly informative and good guidance for us about how we should be conducting our work. One example of the type of recommendation that the Auditor General made was that we should be tracking, not we, the audit wasn't about us, but the regulatory authority should be tracking the nature of the complaints that they receive and how those complaints are resolved. So there's an example of something that we're taking to heart from the start to make sure that we are tracking the nature of complaints received and their resolution that puts us in a position to be accountable for how we're dealing with complaints. And there are other lessons to be learned from the Auditor General's reports. On the side of government accountability, there are two main ways that we're accountable. The first is by having a board of directors that provides strategic oversight and holds the organization accountable through the CEO. The check and balance of a board concerned to make sure the organization is strategically well aligned and is fulfilling its obligations is an important part of our accountability structure. We also have an administrative agreement with government, which is on our website, that includes a range of responsibilities, including filing of or creating of a business plan, an annual report, providing regular reports to the ministry, bringing to the ministry's attention if there are any concerns that arise with respect to our operation, or if there are improvements in our operation that should be considered by the ministry. Also providing opportunities for the ministry, both in the administrative agreement and in the statute, to give us further direction if needed to ensure that we're doing a good job. So there is heightened accountability through the administrative agreement, which we think is appropriate. We're committed to being accountable and being transparent, and we welcome inquiries from the government about the work that we're doing so that we can demonstrate that we're both fulfilling our obligations and that we're working to be value for money.
Thanks, Tim. And this next question is a great opportunity for us to talk a little bit more about the Code of Ethics. And the question is, are there examples that builders can use so that they're clear on how they can adhere to the Code of Ethics?
Well, if you go to the Code of Ethics that's posted for comment, you'll see that it contains a range of statements about requirements for builders. And some of them are somewhat general. I mean, I think people get the idea of these comments. The main, because the main point to make is that the standards that they set for ethical conduct are ones that we're all familiar with and that are ones that good builders are living up to now. It has been said that over time, it would be useful for there to be more specific examples of what is viewed as ethical conduct and what is viewed as unethical conduct. And that's something that we do want to build on as decisions are rendered, as examples come forward of both unethical conduct and also conduct that is ethical, we are thinking through how we can provide those examples to builders, to home buyers, and the public, so that we can build up a more and more detailed sense of what the ethical expectations are for builders. You know, that's what happens when decisions are rendered under these types of frameworks and are published. People can get a clearer and clearer understanding of what the specifics of ethical conduct are. And we will look forward to being transparent about the development of the ethical standards as we move forward.
Thanks, Tim. And just to build on that last question, this next one is about enforcement actions on behalf of the HCRA and how those will be handled. And specifically, will the approach be more focused on enforcement to address the bad, and I quote, bad apples, or on working with builders to bring them into compliance?
So both, or one and the other. A risk management framework involves the use of both approaches. Where the builder needs help to be compliant, encouragement to be compliant, that's what we should be providing. Where a builder's conduct can be corrected, if you will, by a compliance measure, perhaps a warning, perhaps feedback, then, and that's going to cause the builder to be compliant, to conduct themselves the way they need to, then that's the type of engagement that we should have with the builder. Where, however, it's clear that in order to really make the point, in order to address a builder's conduct that has repeated examples of engaging in unethical conduct or continued illegality, then in those circumstances we'll need to look at stronger enforcement mechanisms, up to and including licensing consequences like suspending or revoking the license, or where there are offenses under the New Home Construction Licensing Act or under the New Home Warranty Plan Act, prosecutions where there's the evidence and the reasonable prospect of conviction, prosecutions, and seeking fines, or if necessary, even more severe sanctions where that's warranted by the nature of the builder's conduct. So there should be a continuum of response that's ready to be used to respond to the degree of risk and the level of poor conduct by the builder, so that we can engage in the appropriate response. Not too much, not too little. What's appropriate to the circumstances, but decisive action is needed to deter illegal activity. And there is a need to address both, of course, the conduct of licensed builders, but also illegal builders. And we will be very interested in information that people want to supply us about illegal building activities, so we can work to address it, because it's a priority.
Thanks, Tim. This next question is about a builder question, the transition between Tarion and the HCRA, specifically related to renewals, and what the differences are in the HCRA in terms of requirements versus Tarion.
So the main differences in terms of requirements are the ones that I've already highlighted. And particularly in the case of renewals, the declaration about interested persons, and we'll provide information about how to address that requirement. The renewal process will be quite familiar. We'll have a builder portal which will contain a renewal form, and as has previously been the case with renewals, where the information is the same as in the previous year, and there's no history during the course of that year that raises any risk, it can be expected that the renewal will be, as is appropriate in those circumstances when addressing the renewal of a low-risk builder, of a good builder, that the renewal will be fairly routine. Of course, if there is information in terms of a change of circumstances for the builder such that something has significantly changed in their operation, then we'll assess that, whether it raises any new concern, or if there has been activity or history during the period of time leading up to the renewal that raises concern, we'll address that as well. But generally speaking, the requirements for renewal are going to be familiar to builders who have been through the application and renewal process before. And as I said, there is a month after we open our doors before the first possible time of need to file a renewal. And so please, during that period of time, look at the renewal form, look at the requirements for renewal. And if you have any questions, please do give us a call, because staff will be more than ready to answer any concerns that you might have about the renewal process once we open our doors.
Thanks, Tim. This one is about builder competencies, and the attendee is wondering if there's any difference between what Tarion requires in terms of competency and what HCRA will require, and if there are any process changes as well.
Generally, the answer is no. There are no changes to the competencies or to the process at launch. The 7 competencies still remain in effect, and we expect that the training providers and the availability of courses will be the same. Also, the ability to apply for equivalency based on work experience or having completed other educational requirements or having a designation will make equivalency determinations as before. And then with respect to certain types of applicants, we will be judging competency presence on the basis of the nature of the team that's been assembled to work on those projects, and particularly high-rise condo projects. So there'll be a lot of familiarity to how competencies are addressed. We do take competency really seriously, and we want to be taking a good look, a close look at competencies, but it will be based on a familiar set of competencies and a familiar process. And then over time, there will of course be an ongoing assessment about competencies and whether we've got the right requirements for competencies in place. We know that there's one area in respect of competencies that there will be consideration given to change in immediately, not immediately, but very shortly after doors open, because the Auditor General has made a recommendation about technical competencies for construction site supervisors, that there needs to be attention given to establishing competency expectations for construction site supervisors. So we will be beginning to engage in a process of consultation about that issue, and then moving forward over the course of the next months to develop an approach to technical competency expectations for construction site supervisors. So there's an example of how, a lead example of how over time competencies may evolve in order to address concerns or risks that start to manifest themselves in the market.
Thanks, Tim. We have a few questions about the creation of HCRA, separating the licensing and the warranty process, what the genesis of that was, and what there's a question also about, is Tarion being eliminated? So maybe you could just go over the story of how HCRA came to be, and what the status of the 2 organizations will be as of February 1st.
Back in 2016, 17, the government of the day arranged a review by then Justice Cunningham of Tarion, and that review considered how to ensure, looked at how to enhance the consumer protection effectiveness and consumer confidence in the licensing and warranty process. And a recommendation was that the licensing and warranty process should be split into two and handled by two organizations, so that both builders and consumers could be confident that when they were dealing with the licensor's focused and only concern was the license and not the administration of the warranty program. So out of that came the creation of the New Home Construction Licensing Act and the establishment of the HCRA. And so what that means for us is that we are solely focused on licensing and compliance with the licensing regime as our focus task. And we've been given tools to allow us to carry that role out. And it's a good focus because it's having us look at the conduct of builders and the competency and financial responsibility of builders to determine whether or not there are concerns at the level of the builder that need to be resolved and addressed. And we're not concerned with or responsible for the addressing of specific warranty defects or the administration of the warranty program. So that provides us with a good focus. At the same time, Tarion Warranty Corporation is continuing, continues to have the responsibility for the warranty program, so is not being eliminated, and is itself engaged in a process of improving and changing how the warranty process works, in part because of the special audit from the Auditor General that made a series of recommendations for improvements of the warranty process that Tarion has been engaged in carrying out a meeting in which it is committed to continuing to implement. And Tarion is at the moment consulting about various changes, and I'm sure they would welcome your interest and inquiries about the changes that they're making to the warranty process.
Thanks, Tim. The next question is whether or not the HCRA intends to have an ombudsperson, much like the role that the ombudsperson plays at Tarion.
At Tarion, there is an ombuds who deals with complaints about Tarion's processes and addresses them, makes recommendations for improvement, issues recommendations, et cetera, and issues a report. In the case of the HCRA, it's not intended to have an ombuds. We don't have the same volume of transactions to address as there are in the case of the administration of the warranty program. At the same time, we would take seriously, and we do think it's important to be clear that we do take seriously any complaint about or concern about the HCRA's process, either that it's not working well or that we made a mistake or that we didn't handle something properly. We're very interested in understanding any concern of that kind, and we'd welcome a concern of that kind being brought forward, and we're going to have internal processes effective February 1 to make sure that those concerns are taken seriously, those complaints are taken seriously, investigated and addressed and escalated within the organization, so that and that we're clear about what we're doing about that complaint and clear about how we're proposing to resolve it, so that we have the full accountability for our work that we should have including when the complaint is about us.
Thanks, Tim. We're just going to stick on complaints for one more question. I think this will be our last question because we're running out of time. The question is, will it be difficult for consumers on complaints to navigate two organizations? Could a warranty matter result in a licensing complaint requiring consumers, as they said, to navigate the two organizations? And how will that be handled at the HCRA?
So no wrong door. If a complaint comes to us and we are of the view that it has a warranty specific element to it, we will make the warm handoff to Terrian. We do understand that it can be that in the same matter, there can be both a warranty issue and also a complaint about the builder's conduct overall. So it doesn't mean that because there's a warranty matter that's being addressed, there can't be a complaint to the HCRA, or that because there's a complaint to the HCRA, that a warranty matter can't be addressed by Terrian. And so we'll want to carefully consider how and where the complaint or the concern can best and most effectively be addressed. And it's possible that it may be that both organizations need to use their processes and be active in addressing the overall situation in order to ensure that the complaint is properly dealt with. I would say that one of the things that is relevant to licensing is the overall pattern of the builder fulfilling their warranty obligations. And if there is an overall concern there, it can potentially have licensing consequences, as is appropriate if builders aren't overall honoring their warranty obligations. Then that could and should have licensing consequences in the appropriate case. So we do want to have an open door and warm handoff policy that ensures that both organizations are engaged in fulfilling their respective mandates.
Thanks. Thanks to all of you for your questions. Thank you, Tim, for all of those very thorough answers. That's all the time we have for this evening's webinar. And if we didn't get to your question tonight, feel free to contact us directly and we'll respond. As mentioned earlier, we're planning one more webinar next week, so you're more than welcome to join us again, and we encourage you to let other people know that they're happening. We're also very open to hearing from you individually, so please don't hesitate to contact us by email. Also, we encourage you to visit our Interim website, hcraontario.ca. There you'll find our operational guidelines, including around the complaints process that we talked a lot about, expected builder conduct and licensing fees, as well as other information about consultations and how the HCRA will function come February 1st. Thank you again so much for joining this webinar. We hope you found it informative, and we look forward to continuing to engage with you as the HCRA prepares to begin operations. Have a great evening, everyone. Take care. Good night.